What's up, everybody, and welcome to the very first edition. We are excited about it, and it's called Relationship Reset. This is going to be an awesome time, time spent, because we're going to deal with something that will affect everybody, whatever relationship you're involved in, husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. Maybe it's a single relationship, and we're going to cover that in a few. But there are all kinds of relationship. You have to go to work. You got to relate to the people there. What about your church relationships? Whatever relationship you are involved in, well, we're going to help you to understand how to reset when it comes to your relationship. In fact, I was just reading something, and it talks about reset. And reset actually means, it's a very interesting word, to set something again or to set something anew. It also means to change the reading of something often to zero and start over again, and then to move something back to its original place or position. There's not a relationship on the planet that does not need a reset. If you're going to be in a relationship, you've got to understand what it means to reset, because reset is part of the navigation of relationships, period. And most people, rather than reset, well, they decide to go in another direction and maybe dissolve the relationship, where it could have been prevented if you understood the principle of how to reset. So we're excited. This is our very first podcast. We've been praying, we've been planning, we've been strategizing. We have done all that we know to do. We've got some great people behind the scenes. And this is one of the most awesome opportunities that we're going to have. And of course, we're going to bring you in on an opportunity, because I know that there are some of you out there that's having opposition. And with opposition will always come an opportunity. And so I have with me and my family, basically. And this is a very powerful family subject, because we're going to talk about, and I got it right here, life after single. And I want to introduce, I'm the daddy-daughter duo. And of course, that's Stephanie, my
Daughter. I'm daughter, Stephanie.
lovely daughter. She tells me to
Yes.
put in there. And I've got one of the most beautiful, brightest persons on the planet, my beautiful wife, Dr. Cindy Trimm. I had to just put all of it out there, all of it.
Well, thank you. It's exciting,
Yeah.
especially this inaugural, and we're talking about relationships. So many people are hurting today, and they're hurting because of relationships. Some of our greatest joys come from relationships, but also some of our greatest pain comes from relationship. And I think this is exciting. Congratulations to both of you. I think
Thank
it's the
you.
first of its kind, because usually when you have relationships, it's usually either someone who's a relationship guru or a husband and a wife. And this is unique, this is needed, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And thank you for giving me such a gorgeous bonus daughter.
Yeah.
She's gorgeous, she's smart, she's amazing, and
She does what she can.
she's really, you could tell the success of parenting
Mm-hmm.
when you look at the child. So, I think, wisdom is manifested by its children, and that's what scripture says.
That's right.
So this
That's
is
right.
a testimony of your relationship that you've developed within a family structure. And I'm anxious to start the conversation.
Yeah, it's exciting because everything rises and falls on relationships.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter whether it's a positive or a negative relationship, it's going to have an impact. Relationships have a rippling effect. It's like taking a pebble and dropping it in a little puddle, and you can see just the ripples go out. A lot of times people think like this: well, you know what? Whatever I do, it's just me and it's not affecting anybody else. But if you are connected with anybody, whatever you do, it does have an impact. It does have an effect.
Even nature shows it. I mean, everything is interrelated. So, you look at a cockroach and we kill cockroaches. But
Yeah.
without a cockroach, there's no poop. And the poop is the nitrate that the
Wow.
earth needs to be
So
fertilized.
that's what they're for.
Yeah, so everything, and plus, they devour dead things.
Yeah.
So, everything in the universe is interrelated. And if we think that we can live our lives solo and from a silo, there's a rude awakening that's going to happen. But I think, once we understand that the whole universe is built on the foundation of a relationship,
Yeah.
how, nature relates to us. I mean, if the trees decided, I'm not going to show up in relationship
Yeah.
anymore with human beings, and I'm
Yeah.
going to withhold my assignment in the earth realm, we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the moment we withhold ourselves from anything, whether it's on the job or in marriage, then we set something negative in emotion. And I'll give you an example that if you hold your breath because you don't like a tree, and you
Yeah.
say, I'm not giving you any carbon monoxide, the
Yeah.
tree then cannot fulfill its assignment. So it cannot photosynthesize the monoxide that we breathe out.
Yeah.
And so we're not giving anything. And then the tree can fulfill. So there's no oxygen that
Yeah.
it can give us back.
Right.
Exactly.
And so both the tree dies and we die.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are walking dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when relationships are not functional, it has an impact on everything
Everything.
around us.
Yep.
I've seen people have certain problems at home. They leave their house, they go to the job, they take an attitude with them there. But where did it all start? It all started in their initial family relationship. Again, whether it's husband and wife or parent and children, the list goes on and on and on. So, what we're going to do, we're going to help people to understand what it means to reset because we constantly have to do that. And as I said earlier, a lot of people don't know how that works. They don't know how to reset. You made a statement and you were saying, and we were talking to a group of people, and you were saying, you know what? Every time we leave each other, every time you go somewhere, I go somewhere and come back, we come back different. We come back from an experience. We come back having dealt with something that maybe it affects our attitude, it affects our thinking, it affects our belief, it affects our behavior. So reset is something that we constantly have to do regardless of how long you've been living with somebody.
Or even how beautiful the relationship is.
Yeah.
Because we're all growing. And it's a recognition that we really don't truly know one another because we have our private self, personal selves, and we choose to reveal whatever we want to reveal. There are some people who are in painful personal struggles, very painful. And, one day they're interacting with their children or even with colleagues or even with their spouse. And the spouse might go off to work and come back and find that someone has committed suicide.
Wow.
And it causes confusion. Why didn't we see it? Why didn't we know? Because we have the public persona and then we have our private reality. And hopefully, and that's why I think self-care is important and communication is important.
Yeah.
Transparency is important. And, to be quite frank, in a lot of relationships, people don't feel safe in giving another person right and access to themselves or even being transparent enough so that a person understands their journey and their perspectives. And it could be for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
And, it may not have anything to do with that relationship. It may be something that happened when they were young or something that happened in a previous relationship where they feel like they have to protect themselves. But, I travel a lot. I have clients. And one of the things I've found out is we're actors. We've learned cues from one another, and this is what I do. if this happens. And so we're actors, but where do we find that place where we can be totally ourselves, we can be authentic without the fear of rejection or without the fear of misunderstanding?
I usually say that's the real definition of safety. Safety is when you can enter into some type of environment and strip everything off. You know, when you can feel safe with someone. And I think in relationships, that's what we lack a lot. We lack a lot of the feelings of safety. When you can come around someone, you can take off the mask, you can
Yeah.
take off all the filters,
Yeah.
you know, and you can say what you need to say without feeling afraid that I'm going to have a consequence. So I think most of our relationships are looking for a feeling of safety. When we have to go, especially in our own homes, when we have to walk into our homes and put on masks and put on filters and walk on eggshells, then that's usually a sign that this is not a safe relationship. You know, so I think the goal of every relationship, whether it's a parent relationship or whatever relationship we're talking about, the goal is to feel safe, to be able to strip everything off, to take everything off, and feel safe with your, whether it's your partner, whether it's your father or your mother, and all of those things is to feel safe. So that's what we need in our relationships.
And you know, just trust. A lot. I hear a lot of people talk about how they don't trust, and clarifying that. You know, do you not trust a person, or do you not trust the person with you? Because those are two different kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
Like you could trust someone, but not trust them with your soul,
Right.
or not trust them with information.
Yeah.
And it's usually with you have to pull the layers back and ask the huge big question: do you trust yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you trust your ability to have a standard for your relationships? Do you trust your choice, your judgment? Because you don't attract who you want, you attract who you are.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of inner work that we have to do. And going back to relationship reset, taking it back to zero, where's that 0 point? That 0 point is with you. So as you begin to work on yourself, this is where self-care comes. As you begin to work on yourself and know yourself and care for yourself, we talk about self-care, but you can't care for a self that you don't know.
Right.
And
Yeah.
because between the ages of 0 and 6, we're really in a neutral state, talking about family relationships. 0 to 6, you don't have the intellectual building blocks to interact with consciousness, with you're almost walking around unconscious, but you know, with critical thinking, you don't have those critical thinking abilities. So you're neutral, you're in this neutral state, and you are an observer as well an absorber. You observe and you absorb. And then after 6, this is when you begin to connect with your personality. But 0 to 6, you're looking at how, you know, your parents are interacting, siblings, you go out and play, and you're absorbing everything about the world. What if there's a culture of disempowerment? Or what if there's an abusive environment? Or what if your parents, who should be reflecting who you are as a child, what if that reflection is fragmented and broken because you have fragmented, broken parents who don't know who they are?
Right.
And this is not to blame parents. Because most parents are doing the best that they can. This is not to blame parents, but that's the reality of how our belief systems are formed.
Yeah.
You're non-participatory, 0 to 6. And so going back to even new parents, since this is all about relationships, and even parents that raise children and you get wisdom and maturity, you should not walk around with guilt or regret, because this is about reset. So what you didn't do with your children because you just didn't know,
Yeah.
you could do with your grandchildren. So
Exactly.
you could reset on that level. But the whole idea of resetting, you can reset your entire family dynamics
Yeah.
if one person is mature. But I think what we cannot do in the reset is to blame people.
Yeah.
Once you're an adult, you have to take 100% responsibility for your
Correct.
happiness, your joy, your peace, for the trajectory of your life. So you let it go, you forgive, you disconnect with that. So a reset means that you have to consciously, deliberately, intentionally disconnect.
Yeah.
And you say, look, I cannot go back to my past to change anything. So I can't go back to have to an old start to have a new beginning, but I could start now to have a new ending.
Yeah.
And so that's what the reset is.
Yeah.
Not going back, clawing back, looking at whose fault it is. But now, as an adult, right now, no matter what happened before, I can reset my life by having a better vision for my future.
Yeah. I like the fact, first of all, the fact that I'm sitting right between my mom and my dad. This is like, I can literally do this every single show. This is comfort for me. So I love the fact, and you're talking about resetting relationships. And this relationship that we have right here is a product of a reset.
Yes, it is.
You know, and I
Absolutely,
love, and I
yeah.
love the fact, and I kind of want to get into it a little bit because you had to reset. You've been single for how many years?
21.
21 years. Mom's been single for 21 years. Okay?
Yeah, and I'm only 21 years
And
old.
she's only 21
I'm
years
only-
old. So
look,
for her
as a
whole
woman
entire
thinks,
life.
as a woman thinks in her heart, so is she. You know, we talk about growing old gracefully. I'm fighting it all the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You fight. And you
You
do a
can't.
good
I mean,
job.
you know, you can age, but you don't have to get old.
And you don't have to get old, exactly. And
Yeah.
you will never get
Yeah.
old. And then we have the other young one over here.
Yeah.
Daddy, you've been
I'm fighting harder than she is because I'm way up there beyond my wife. So yeah, I've got a lot of. I'm fighting age. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, fighting. I don't. There's a difference between old and age. You know, I'll take the age, but I'm never going to be old.
Oh,
Right.
definitely not.
Yeah.
It's all a mentality, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was something you mentioned though that I heard earlier. One of the things that a compliment that I've given you, others have also said it. You're one of the most well developed persons inwardly. And that shows based on how you conduct yourself, whether it's relationship, whether it's business, your inward development. So once we were married and you were, coming into this matrimony thing, give me some idea of, or this audience, some idea of that kind of reset.
Yeah.
How did that, I mean, you're developed. You were personally, you knew yourself.
Absolutely.
But then again, I showed up chasing you.
Mm-hmm.
And now you had to rethink some things, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So,
You have to rethink a lot, and redefine. So in reset, there's always the redefinition, redefining who you are, the roles that you play. Because a lot of times people think marriage will magically eliminate their sense of loneliness or their sense of how they show up in the world. It'll eliminate a lot of things, that the average single person goes through. Not knowing that a marriage is not there for that. A husband or a wife is not there to eliminate things that are going on with you on the inside. And I think because I was already successful, because I was already happy, because I knew who I was, because I was independent. I'm an independent individual. I had to learn how to live not just as an alpha woman, because as an alpha woman in my family, within my, the Trimm
Right.
side of the family,
Yeah.
I was an alpha woman. And I had to learn how to redefine the role that I will play. And, there are 12 areas that you live in. 12 dimensions of
Right.
being, I call it 12 dimensions of being. And one of the dimensions is as a spouse if you're married.
right.
So going from singlehood or singleness to spousehood, it meant that I had to set or reset how I showed up in the world, because now I'm playing another role, and that's the role of a wife, and I had to figure out, okay, between the two of us, what does that look like?
Right.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of scenarios. You have breadwinner and homemaker. That's one kind of dynamic in marriage,
Right.
and there are marriages that are like that. That works well. Then you will have the I would call it a housekeeper
Right.
or housemaid and the guest. So one of them shows up and the house becomes this hotel. And one is the guest and the other is the housekeeper. You know how you have housekeeping services?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, there's someone that's cleaning and someone that's picking up
yeah, yeah.
from one another. And there's all kinds of roles. You could play the role as father and daughter,
Right.
or the wife plays the role of mother and son. And we have to be careful even as the mother and son role, because a man needs to be honored
Yeah.
and a man needs to be respected. And if a woman ever plays the role of mother, taking care of this man, cultivating this man, then they're no longer married in the sense of companionship, partnership. And a woman will eventually strip the man of their self-worth, and then the woman eventually will never respect the man, because you don't talk about respecting your son and honoring your son.
That's right,
You
yeah.
talk about your son honoring you as your parent.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different scenarios that I can paint when it comes to moving from singlehood, where you're independent,
Yeah.
into marriage, where the two of you really have to engage in deep conversation to be able to say we're partners. And some women marry a project
Yeah.
Yeah.
because of desperation.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have a lot
And
of
they don't
voids.
marry a partner. So then, there's a lot of resentment that goes on. And again, we were talking earlier about what brews beneath, where people are not displaying it,
Right.
because we didn't learn how to communicate. And to be always politically correct, we bring that into the relationship. But then you can get the opposite,
Right.
where a
Right.
person is so comfortable that that person becomes a sounding board, a punching block, where they take their negative emotions out.
Yeah.
With this person, it's all displacement of emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think with me, I had to learn something, and we talked about this, that with my family, I had such a close relationship with my siblings, and I still do. Mentally, I had to disconnect from the ideology that they were still my immediate family.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's still.
And my immediate family
Yeah.
is you and me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that
whoever is
part.
in that household
Yep.
that is 21 years and older.
Yeah.
So if you have, say for instance, if you have a 25-year-old
Yeah.
that is unmarried and it's you and your husband, and that 25-year-old is still living under the roof, they may be living under the roof, but for all intents and purposes,
Right.
they are now your extended family.
Right.
They are not your immediate. So I had to make adjustments there to disconnect from a paradigm that I had, that my siblings were still my immediate family.
Yeah.
There's some people,
It's
there's
tough.
some
Shoot.
couples, when they get into an argument and it's about extended family, one of the things that I've heard many times, that's always going to be my brother, that's always going to be my sister, that's always going to be my mom. And, sure enough, it causes conflict.
Yeah.
Now, Scripture says for this reason, shall a man leave and
And
cleave, to his spouse, to his wife.